Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So today in this video, our group will present about discourse studies in qualitative research. Let us introduce ourselves first. My name is Dewi Alifia Putri as today's moderator, and I have three friends of mine, including Rossa, Pesona, Romadhona, Tiara Junita, and Deya, Kurniasih, Rahayu. To open this presentation, let me start with the introduction part. So, qualitative research focuses on meaning, experience, and social context. Unlike quantitative research, it doesn't use numbers but word composition and image. Within this tradition, discourse studies plays an important role. It looks at language not only as communication but also as a social practice that reflects culture, identity, and power. According to Renkema and Schubert in 2014, discourse analysis examines how language shapes social reality. Wodak and Meyer in 2009 also explained that discourse can uncover ideologies hidden beneath communication. Move to literature review. The literature showed three important parts. The first is the theoretical foundation. Renkema and Schubert in 2014 say that discourse is a tool to shape social reality. Speech Act Theory by Austin in 1962 and Shirley in 1969 explain that words can also be action. For example, when someone says, I apologize or I promise, the word themselves perform an action. Guy's cooperative principle in 1975 also highlight that speakers and listeners build meaning through shared understanding, even when the message is not said directly. The second is the critical perspective. Scholars like Fairclough and Van Dijk show that language is connected to power and ideology. Ordinary text and conversation often maintain the dominance of certain groups. Wodak and Meyer in 2009 also developed critical discourse analysis or CDA, which examines not only the text but also the socio-cultural and historical context. This helps reveal inequality that normal analysis cannot see. And the last is an empirical example by Nur et al. In 2024. Studied Indonesia English textbook. They found gender bias that boys are shown more often than in active roles, while girls are usually pictured in domestic setting. Using Solomon's bias criteria such as stereotypes, imbalance, and unrealism, this study revealed that textbooks are not neutral but instead reproduce inequality. And that's all from me. The next material will be delivered by Deya.
Okay, thank you, Dewi, for the opportunity. And now I will explain about the methodology of this study. In the methodology, there are three main points. There are overview, data collection, and data analysis. According to Nur, first, there are overview. According to Nur, Cordia, and Angrum 2024, this study applied critical discourse analysis or CDA as the main point. As the main methodology, CDA is part of discourse studies and is often used in qualitative case study research because it examines how language and visual reflect power, ideology, and social culture. In this case, it focuses on how gender is represented in Indonesian ELT textbooks. And for the data collection, the research did not use interview or observation like in many qualitative studies. Instead, they collected document-based data from these official junior high school English textbooks published by the Ministry of Education. These were when English ring a bell for grade 7 and 8 and think globally and act locally for grade 9. The materials analyzed included written passage, dialogues, character names, and illustration. This gave a broad pictures of how male and female role were portrayed in both text and visual. For the data analysis, this study used two main tools. First, Solomon 6 bias criteria. There are invisibility, story typing, imbalance, and selectivity, unreality, fragmentation, and linguistic bias were applied to identify different from the gender bias. Second, the Commonwealth textbooks evaluation checklist was used to assess whether the textbooks meet learners' needs while promoting inclusivity. And the researchers then combined quantitative counts, such as how many times male and female characters appeared with qualitative discourse interpretation, which look at the roles and activities assigned to each gender, Through this method, the study was able to uncover patterns of bias and highlight how textbooks many reinforce or challenge gender equality. And that's all I can say. The next material will be delivered by Rossa, please.
Okay, so I will explain about a discourse studies example. We'll analyze an article with title A Critical Discourse Analysis on Gender Bias Depicted from Indonesian ELT Textbook for Junior High School. So the researchers use this method with critical discourse analysis. Um, Basically, they use it to dig into Indonesian English textbook to find hidden gender bias. Their main idea was that these textbooks are not just for learning grammar. They are actually pushing a certain ideology and strengthening existing power structures in society, and specifically ones that put men in a more powerful position than women. And their approach was pretty clever and had a few layers to it. First, they did the same simple thing. They count stuff. How many picture of men versus women are there, how many male names pop up compared to female names. That gave them hard numbers to prove there was an imbalance from the start. But they didn't stop there. Next, they did a deep dive into the meaning behind those numbers using a specific framework for spotting bias. This helped them figure out how the bias was being created in the text, not just how often it appeared. For the finally, this is a key part of CDA. They connected those textbook findings to bigger picture of Indonesian society. They saw how these books are not created in a vacuum. They actually help keep old school uh, patriarchal norms alive instead of breaking them down. Okay, so their big discovery was that the bias is everywhere, but it's really subtle. The simple lack of equal representation was just the tip of the iceberg. The real myth was in the deeper stuff. They found 8 examples of incivility where women or their achievement were basically left out or ignored, and 4 examples of straight up stereotyping. They also made a great point. Sometimes what's not said is just as important as what is said. The fact that they didn't find certain type of balance or fair language was in itself a huge findings. And all of this is up to show that these textbooks are secretly socializing students, shaping their views on that men and women can also do, which keep inequality ticking on. And the main takeaway is that these Indonesian English textbooks are actively supporting unfair gender norms instead of challenging them. Because of that, the researcher make a strong case that we urgently need new and improved teaching materials. That's all for me. Next material will be delivered by Tiara.
Okay, thank you, Rosa, for the opportunity. And now I will explain about the discussion of the article we have analysis. This study emphasizes the value of discourse studies in qualitative research, showing that ELT textbooks carry implicit ideologies rather than being neutral. Using CDA, it uncovered gender bias often missed in traditional evaluations. Discourse studies help reveal hidden message and power relations, guiding educators and policymakers in material selection. However, its interpretive nature raises concerns about subjectivity and generalizability, and it requires time and analytical skills. Despite these challenges, it promotes critical, reflective practices in ELT material selection and development. And the last is conclusion. This report analyzed a study by Noor, Kodria, and Angrum 2024 that used critical discourse analysis to uncover gender bias in an Indonesian junior high school ELT textbook. The study revealed a clear gender imbalance, with males portrayed as more visible and active, reflecting traditional gender ideologies. This highlights how discourse studies contribute to qualitative research by exposing hidden ideologies, content, and challenging the notion that teaching materials are neutral. Future research could use CDA to explore other representations such as culture, ethnicity, and class, and incorporate students and teachers' perspectives for a more comprehensive understanding of ELT materials' impact. And this is the references we use to this report. And this is the end of our presentation. Thank you for your attention. I'm so sorry if there was a mistake. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.